I want to make a couple of announcements while we're all here. We are missing some dancers today. We have 2 additional choreographers, Cecil Slaughter and Erin Morris, who are going to be coming in a little bit. So now you're going to step up.
I'm John Covelli. I am leader of the Hard Bop Messengers, composer of the music Live at the Last Hotel, and music director for the Live at the Last Hotel dance and music experience. I never really got to play much jazz since college. I played in rock bands, funk bands, salsa, wedding bands, everybody else's band but my own. The few times that I did play music that resembled jazz, it was not what I considered to be my sweet spot or my strike zone. It was essentially finding the blue note jazz classics that most musicians knew, but were offbeat a little bit and not overused standards in wedding band dinner music. And so I put together Hard Bop Messengers to showcase that style, the late 50s, early 60s, mostly Horace Silver, kind of an unsung hero of jazz. My goal was to make jazz fun for the audience to listen to and fun for the musicians to play it. So it was a chance meeting with a guy named Will Rogers, who was running food and beverage at a hotel downtown. And I was introduced to him, and we were talking about music in St. Louis, and I said, well, you know, there is no jazz scene in downtown St. Louis. It's really a shame. And he said, well, my hotel is downtown. Why don't we have jazz there? And so he hired me to put my quintet in his lobby every Friday night. So that was that. The Last Hotel is a historic building on Washington Avenue. It was part of the International Shoe Building, International Shoe Company. It's a huge, amazing structure. It's fancy, it's classic, it's got a lot of great design. And being a part of that lobby, playing music in the lobby, was really special experience for me. And I spent quite a bit of time watching people and watching the entire scene while the band was playing the music I wanted to be playing. And we played for 6 months until March 13th shut us down. That was our last night at the Last Hotel. At the tail end of our residency, I had started to write music, original compositions that reminded me of the hotel. And once COVID hit and I was sitting around in quarantine, trying to stay productive, I started writing music, more and more music that reminded me of the hotel. Then I met a vocalist who shared the same sensibilities as I did about jazz vocals. And I started writing lyrics for the songs that helped me just kind of therapeutically deal with the end of my residency. And before I knew it, I had an album's worth of songs that told a story about the hotel. And so I got my guys together and we made the album. During that time, I was listening to the album over and over and over again and hearing it in my sleep. And I was starting to see visions in my sleep of something that was taking a shape. And I didn't quite understand what was happening, but the music was taking on another form. And so I approached a friend of mine who's a dramatist, and I asked him for advice, and he referred me to another friend of ours from college who said that perhaps this music has a story that could be told in dance. He was who recommended that I look for Cecil Slaughter at WashU. and that's I found Cecil.
My name is Cecil Slaughter, and I am a professor of the practice at Washington University. And I received a phone call one day from John Covelli. He was telling me that he had this music he was working on, that he had actually written an album based on his experience of playing at the Last Hotel downtown St. Louis. And he was wondering what he could do with it. So he was asking me, I don't know if this is a play, I don't know if it's an opera, I don't know if it's a musical. So I said, well, let me have a listen to it. So I listened to it and I told him, as a choreographer, I see movement and I see a ballet. And that's not to say that it can't become more than a ballet one day, but I can experiment with it and show you what I would do with it. And if that's something you're like or you're interested in, then maybe we could, I could see if I could set it on our student dance company. So he was really excited about that. And basically I took two of his pieces of the music and I set it on our student dance company at WashU, and we performed it. In the meantime, he had met Maria, and he was asking me if I knew Maria, and I got excited. I was like, oh yeah, I know Maria. And he said she was interested in it. And so he was saying he would love it if we all could work together. And I said, of course. So that's basically how I got involved.
I'm Maria Majors, and I'm the executive director of STL Rythm Collaborative. And STL Rythm Collaborative is the producing company for this production, Live at the Last Hotel. I'm also a co-choreographer for the production. What got me into the production was the music. I initially found the Hard Bop Messengers because of a photo I saw in the Riverfront Times that had a musician in it that we had worked with before, which was how I got connected with John. And so we started talking about the album. I started listening to the album, and he had asked me, do you like it? Do you like the album? What do you think of the music? And I said, I love it. I can listen to it top to bottom, and I can already visualize a whole show.
And that's when we started meeting and talking about what that could be. And that's when my understanding of music in general started expanding by leaps and bounds. Talking with another person, a non-musician, about music really was and still is a huge learning experience for me. It just blows my mind how people are not perceiving music the way I thought everybody did. So we started planning. Then a third person came aboard, Erin. She had just finished her MFA at WashU and wanted to be involved. And I just can't ignore these signs. I have to accept at some point that these people are not just saying this to make me feel better. They want to be involved in this music.
My name is Erin Morris, and I'm on the dance faculty at Washington University. My MFA thesis project last spring involved a live jazz band and a cast of dancers. And it was just really a great experience for me to kind of keep doing what I had started doing already, and with a new cast and new musicians, and I just couldn't be more delighted to be on board.
And just started talking about what to do, how to start up. And it was like starting a business. Maria tasked herself first with creating a line-by-line budget, basically showing us that we needed a lot of money to do this. I instantly started to worry about money and thought, well, if we don't get this money, this show won't happen, and I'll be back to normal state, which is I'm worthless. This is just all in my head. I really did worry about whether this was really going to happen. I think that's why it's so overwhelming, because, I spend a lot of idle time in my head thinking that it wouldn't happen. And so now that it's happening, it is really overwhelming. And all along the way, Cecil and Maria assured me that there was enough interest in this show, whether we get the money or not.
How were we going to find funding? Because the more that we talked about what we wanted to do, the challenge of funding was ever present because it was going to cost money. I wanted to make it a larger collaboration of dance than we've ever done before. Primarily, my organization presents professional tap dance performances, but I wanted to bring area dancers in the community together, and I wanted to include different disciplines of dance. So we have former and present students from Missouri Baptist University in the show. We have current and former students from Washington University in the show. And we also have St. Louis area jazz and contemporary and modern dancers. So this is the largest cast that as STL Rythm Collaborative we've ever worked with. I think we have a cast and crew of between 35 and 40 people. But funding was an issue because everybody was on board from the beginning, even though we couldn't really guarantee we could pay them. But John and I put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do our best to raise as much money as we possibly could so that we could pay the artists as much as possible, pay them for their rehearsal time and for their creativity and passion for following us on this journey.
On Sunday at rehearsal, I sort of had a deer in the headlights moment where I finally pictured in my head what this was all going to look like from our vantage point on stage, looking out at the audience in in a rehearsal hall. I started to really feel the gravity of the large room and the large stage and what it would look like. It's taken me a few days to get past that, and what I know now is we're just a jazz group playing jazz on stage. And there are times when we will interact with the dancers, but for the most part, this is a gig, and I just got to show up and be the best musician I can be and make sure my band comes in and plays at the right time, and that's my job, and I need to kind of focus on that and not worry so much about the bigness of the whole experience.